Welcome to Modern Morality. My name is Mikey, and I'm joined here by John.
Hello, everyone.
And Johnny.
Hello.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoy.
Yep. Hey, Hunter, this one's for you. Good listening.
All right, welcome back to Modern Morality. So, I'm joined here with Johnny, John, and today we actually got Eddie back with us.
How are y'all?
Yeah, so
Starting to become regular.
Yeah,
Just saying.
yeah. We might get some other. We might get some.
Actually,
Some
I
of
got
his
a
brother
question.
up on
I got a question for Eddie, but why don't you give him a little background on Eddie, and they'll know why I'm asking him the question.
And Eddie's definitely going to have to correct me on this, I'm sure. But so Eddie is a manager of how many employees now? I know you're quite a few now, isn't it?
Yeah, we're company-wide, we're over 60. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah. So I don't want to give too much specifics, just due to trying to stay anonymous and security reasons. But Eddie's been a manager for several years. He's definitely shown a lot of leadership factors or ability. What's the word?
Acumen.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of business acumen and leadership acumen. So I'm saying all this because I think today we're going to talk about.
I had an event happen, and I want an opinion on it because it really kind of made me start thinking about the morality and how things in the business world have changed, or leading people has changed. And as you guys all know, you've heard in previous episodes, I've been in the corporate world most of my career, and there's corporate rules and corporate guidelines and stuff like that. Eddie's company is more of a family-owned company. And I'm sure there's some difference. I know there's differences in how business is conducted. But one thing I think they have in common is something that happened to me this week. Is I had an employee. He was a manager of a team who went AWOL. I mean, we couldn't contact him. And yes, there's the impact to the business that has, but more importantly, people were truly concerned about him. And I don't know, does this sound familiar? Anything you might have experienced, Eddie?
Yeah, we've had a few of those.
So my concern, though, is, or my issue with this is that I want to get in front of our listening audience, is how that would have been handled 30, 40, 50 years ago as to how it's handled now. And, I back in the day, you cared about the person. That was obvious, and everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody in town. And, things spread quickly. In this particular case, I only had so many levels I could even try to reach this person. I had to get our HR department involved.
I was going to say, it sounds, so would the topic of this episode be the evolution of HR?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because human resources 30, 40 years ago looked completely different than what human resources look like now.
Why don't we save title in this one toward the end, because I think it's got all kind of components such as fear of litigation, fear of offense, those kind of things, because all of those components have actually changed the guidelines and standards we have to operate under.
Well, let me clarify something to our listening audience. The way that your business is conducted, most of your employees are remote workers, right?
That is correct.
That puts a whole different perspective on how things are being handled.
It certainly does, but I'm not sure which way.
It's probably for the worse.
Probably.
But there should be something in the manual that allows for certain criteria to take place. I've got to ask you something. How long? I know that you eventually talked to him. He came back to work, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and ironically, when I talked to him, he was very transparent about everything that had happened, very forthcoming, and whatnot, whereas HR wouldn't share anything with me. They actually are the ones that contacted him because they had emergency contact information I didn't have.
Let me ask you this. How long was he AWOL before HR contacted him?
He was AWOL about 2 full days from work before I reached out to HR, and it took them another few hours to get him.
Because I think,
and they didn't get him; they got his contact person.
and I think that you would find that after 3 days, it's up to HR to do the contacting anyway. So
Right.
you just preempted that.
Out of concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what you were talking about, and I hate to
You're good.
I hate to not let our guests speak, but 40 years ago, 35 years ago, if we had an employee missing, whether we didn't have remote workers back then, but we would have done everything in our power to get in touch with them and find out what is going on.
Go to their house.
Because you knew the person.
Right.
You knew that was out of their
or call their Uncle Jim or something.
exactly, or do a health check on somebody. That part of it has really changed in the
Right.
past 20, 30, 35 years.
So
I think
It's still the same, though. I mean, you still have, especially from our perspective, we do know a lot of the families that are in our business. And when you have people and you start calling, I mean, you genuinely want to know where these people are at.
Well, 35 years ago, I knew everybody in the plant that I worked at. I wasn't in management or anything, but if somebody was gone for 2 days and hadn't heard from them, we've got a search party out for them.
So-
We're looking for them. We're calling their neighbors. We're going to their house.
So it almost seems, and so just for a little bit of context, I'm the only one at the table right now who hasn't had true managerial or leadership experience. I have led teams, but I've never been in a leadership position in my career. So I can't speak to as much as you guys can. But it sounds like there's almost this evolution of employee from being valued almost friend family to property, to the point where this is my property. The only way that you can access this property is going through these means. Whereas back in the day,
No, I don't think it's so much property. I see where you're going with that, but I don't think it's so much that. It's really more of the afraid to offend or afraid of getting sued. Like, for instance, when HR finally come back to me and said, "Hey, we've made contact," I said, "Great, what happened?" "Oh, we can't tell you that." "Oh, we can't share that with you." "Oh, he's going to be out of work for a few more days, but that's all you can tell his team. That's all you can share."
Well, my point about the property, though, is that you have when you're friends or family or very well acquainted, you typically not only know your employee, but you know their families. Like, I've been in work situations where I knew my team well enough, where I knew their families, along with it. But there is this fear of going too far, where the boundaries are, what is going to put the company at risk from being sued just because you know too much.
And
that takes away from that friendship and almost makes it like this is my employee. That's the only thing you can possibly be.
And that's the hardest part to try and separate, especially when you've known these people all of your life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I think we've had in a previous episode, is because of this idea or this fear, employees are almost they're very expendable. So one of the things that we've talked about in previous episodes is how leaders are not developing people. They would rather fire and potentially get someone who already knows the skill rather than developing people to fit their needs. And I feel like that kind of ties
It turns them into a commodity.
Yeah, I think that ties very well into the point I'm trying to make.
Well, one of the major point that Johnny's trying to get out of this is,
Thank you, John. I was trying to figure out my point.
I can't even remember what it's called. It's the
I think so. The point that John's trying to make.
Thank you, Mikey, for shedding that leadership on it. Appreciate that.
So maybe is the point that he's trying to make is that it's easier to I don't know what that is.
It's probably good that you don't.
I
Just so the audience knows, John's giving me a very a very detailed, heartfelt note across the table. So
Yeah, one of these days these podcasts will turn video, and there won't be those inside jokes for the audience.
I just figured it out. In today's time, you don't want to upset your employee, because employees are getting to the point to where they're hard to find. People, we run ads regularly, and it's hard to get somebody who wants to come in. The grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
it's hard to replace somebody.
Which
the-
really,
what's
But you don't know what's going to offend them. You don't
No,
know.
you don't. You're always on
Yeah.
pins and needles. Heck, you never know when somebody's going to quit you without a notice. I
Yeah.
mean, you're doing all you can.
And this tells everybody how long that I've been out of it, which is probably a year now. What's the federal program that protects people's health information?
You talking about HIPAA?
HIPAA.
Yep.
That's what is protecting the employee from Johnny being able to track them down and ask them why they're not there.
Yeah, but somewhere along the lines, that intent got really skewed.
And
I mean,
I fully agree with
I
that.
mean, I totally understand that I wouldn't want the company to share, my
medical
my
history.
blood sugar readings or
Right.
certain conditions I might have with employees. But
Would
if
you
I
say
were in
that's
an accident, I don't know that that's a problem for my employees to know I was hurt.
Right.
would you say that is a federal program?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you say that a federal program is a problem?
Well, in this case, absolutely.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
where I was headed with that. All that commotion and everything.
Which-
That's where I was headed with this.
Well, let's expand on that. So I think the issue with Eddie's talking about the lack of employees. There's such a high demand for them, but they're not available, and I think that's because our federal programs.
That was what I was fixing to say. So many people are still able to get the money due to the past pandemic, and I know you don't want to throw that out there so many times because your show will get censored with the flag for Corona.
Oh, that
but-
did it. Our numbers are gone now.
But
Uh,
I mean, so many people were getting paid to stay at home. I mean, there was no
Yeah.
incentives for them to actually get a job.
Well, even now, I mean, even post-pandemic, because I've heard it was officially ended. So
What?
no, I know,
there was a
right?
pandemic? Really?
So even after the pandemic, I mean, there's still those programs still exist, and they're still benefiting from that. And I feel like kind of a common theme so far is federal intervention into these businesses are kind of detrimental in a way. Or I don't want to say it's detrimental. It can definitely protect the employee, but I feel like there's so much you lose because of these.
Well, why is the
interventions.
federal involved anyway? I mean, when does it become better for the federal government to regulate something than when people regulate themselves? Or
Well, and this is one of the biggest.
isn't that what
arguments.
morals used to be? Something we regulated by?
Well, and this is the argument that I've heard a lot of people when it comes to talking about these markets is when you go and you're talking about like the minimum wage. Their argument is you made an agreement that you're going to do this work for this dollar. That was an agreement. If you don't like it, you pick your stuff up, you go to the next person,
or make a
negotiate.
different agreement? Yeah.
You have a different agreement. If you show your worth and you can make an argument, you have the ability to talk to that person or renegotiate. Well, it's almost like the federal government has intervened to the point where negotiations only happen when you first get hired, and even then, that's a challenge. When there's so many, like you say, so many fears about repercussions with talking to employees, and when it comes to financial or talking about health or whatever, that the whole aspect of negotiations has kind of been tossed out the window. I don't say that it's all. I mean, you can still negotiate to a certain extent, but I feel like it's not as in depth or thorough as they used to be.
Right.
Or they're beaten
Well-
to death to the point where it's not even negotiation. It's more of these are the standards, and the federal government's going to back me up on them.
Yeah, they're going to hold you hostage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, back to the comparison and contrasting of the family-owned versus the enterprise. So, I see that that's a double-edged sword, because in this family-owned, you want to have the personal touch. That's the way you attract more employees. That's the way you retain the employees. But it puts you more at risk. It puts you more at risk of lawsuit by being personable, and that's what I think the detriment of our society is in morality these days.
For sure. Yeah.
Which I don't even think that it's the fault. So you're saying that the family business is more at risk. I feel like it's more at risk now, but not at the fault of the company. I feel like the morals of modern day society has caused it to be more of a risk.
Well, but the penalty on that company is greater, whether it's their fault or not.
Right. I can agree with that.
And so in a big enterprise, they're trying to mitigate that by putting in rules and policies. Here's the problem with the rules and policies. Enterprises talk about how employees aren't loyal to them anymore. Well, here's the chicken and egg again. Which came first? The way we treat our employees, or the fact that the loyalty's changed? And so, like for instance, let me tell you the impact this real world example had, and that is that it was so disruptive. We're in meetings and everybody's making comments and guessing and assuming, and they've all got their theory what happened to this guy, and we're trying to rein them all back in. Look, we've had contact with him. Move on. How impersonal is that?
Yeah, but they're speculating because they care. They care about him as an individual.
The policy kept us from addressing their concerns.
Yeah, and your coworkers, I mean, they do care. They want to know where you're at, especially if you've gone quiet, gone silent. Bad example, and not even off subject, but we had a wreck right up above the office 3 months ago, and they laid there for 2 days before anybody found them. I mean,
right?
How many people were asking about them?
Right.
That's tragic.
I mean, you know what I mean? So,
yep. No, it definitely is tragic. But yeah, and
we spend more time with our coworkers in a lot of cases than we do with our own families.
So I think at this point, let's design the perfect business where there's no federal, I won't say regulation, but intervention. What would that look like?
Utopia. Just saying.
How so? How could, or what would the business look like, or what kind of people would have to be involved in that business to not only run effectively, be productive, but also, I don't want to say be free of risk of that litigation, that suing and all that stuff?
Well, you can't do one business in a vacuum. What you've got to, you got to change the culture, and all the businesses within that culture then would adapt. But one business you can't sit here and design one business and change the world.
No, you can't.
My first thought when you said that was the Industrial Revolution and how everything was booming.
There you go.
There were a lot of injuries.
Which brought on new challenges, or different challenges.
Yes, it did.
And different morality, for that matter.
Well, I know that, or I've been a part of companies where you're talking about that personal touch, where if something were to happen with the employee, the company will come and have their back, whatever. Right. If it was they had an injury, you would have the entire company come together. If it was a pass the hat program, if it was something that just the owners of the company would do, they would go out and make sure that this person was taken, just one employee was taken care of.
I'm gonna throw this out here. The people that I'm surrounded with in this room, I would feel that they would take a company and treat their employees fairly, would look after them, take care of them, take care of their families, show interest in their families. But we're a minority, guys.
That's the point.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why you have HIPAA. That's why you have all these federal programs. That's why you have unions.
Mm. So one of the things that I've noticed too, and I'm sure you guys have seen this as well, is have you ever seen the minority? You're talking about how we would act in this way. How many times have you seen that guy looked over for someone who's a butt kisser? Who
I've been passed over by those people before.
So I don't want to say how do we change
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't believe you, John.
So how could we change that as a society? What could we do to help? I don't want to say produce better leaders.
You're talking about though the person whose butt getting kissed, their actual morals and what they're looking for. You're talking about that person and what they reward and what they don't reward.
Right.
And they're rewarding, in my opinion, short-term, not even loyalty, as opposed to long-term loyalty and commitment.
And rewarding bad behavior.
They are rewarding bad behavior.
Yeah, I think that's another interesting topic, talking about loyalty within a business. That's hard to find, especially nowadays.
It's very hard.
And I know you said it yourself, that it's hard to find people. And you made the comment before we started is because it's likely that they'll just, if they don't like what you're doing, instead of just roughing through it until they find that good equilibrium, they just quit and go find something else.
Well, I have found that the larger a company is, the less personal the company becomes.
Well, I say that.
Is that good or bad?
For the most part, it's bad. It's a shame that it works out that way.
but
Because
quite possibly more profitable.
there
Well,
you go.
I would almost
You're
say-
talking about the root of all evil, which is money.
I think if you're looking at the admin level, the high level officers, yes, the bigger the company, less personable. But I don't think that affects teams. I think that if you work for, let's say, Google, I think that you could still form very valuable relationships with your team, and maybe even your manager, maybe even a level above them. That you can do the same thing with family-oriented companies. I think the potential is still there. I don't know if it's a fair statement to say that the bigger the business, they just I don't say automatically, but they don't have that opportunity.
What about
Yeah.
the impact to customers? Because I think that has actually, especially in the service industry, if the employees don't feel like family and they don't feel trusted and rewarded, what are they doing to your customers?
That's cancel culture. You're going right there with cancel culture.
You notice in a lot of service-based companies today that the customer is not always right any longer.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I mean, that's a big one.
The customer has an opinion.
What? or that you're going to get it my way. I don't care how you want it. We've seen that a lot lately too.
Or you tell me what you want, I'll tell you what you can have.
Yeah, that's right. You tell me what you want, and I'll give you what I think you need.
That's a famous quote.
Is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to quote somebody.
You quoted somebody.
Elaborate on that one if you don't mind. I don't mind if you give me an example. We don't have any sponsors yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's. All right, I'm trying to think of one that I just had happen recently. I'm not gonna name drop, but we went and sat at a restaurant, a hibachi style restaurant. We got there prior to the close time, sat down, and most of the time you go eat hibachi for the show. I mean,
Yeah,
it's great.
It's more of a show.
The guy flew through it, and halfway through his cooking, because it wasn't a show, he was just cooking. I said, is it close for you to be getting off? I mean, are you fixing to clock out? Are you going on break or something like that? And he just looked at me and laughed and kept on cooking. Had my kids there, expecting some sort of a show. We didn't get it. He flew all the way through it. At the end of it, I said, well, I got one question for you, Leave. I said, did you win whoever you were trying to race? Because that was the fastest I've ever seen this done. And the guy said, oh, I don't know, and then walked off. We paid for the show, and the show we got was Mario Andretti racing the grill. So, I mean, that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty difficult. I'm thinking kind of this. I don't want to say the same topic, but as far as where the customer tends to lose out is like packaging. UPS, FedEx, USPS. It is a challenge to file a claim or anything if you had something damaged. You might as well just cut your losses.
Have you ever had to go to the facility to pick up your own package?
Mm-hmm. I have.
I have too. I didn't pay for that, but I had to.
I mean, I've threatened it.
Well, a lot of times what happens is the seller actually eats the cost for good customer relations instead of
right.
They make it easier to go through them than through the carriers.
Those are the minority. Those businesses like that are the minority, and it is very challenging as far as having that.
Well,
fine line.
that kind of fits the theme that we're kind of unofficially having here is big business, big enterprise. The 800-pound gorillas in the room don't care. They don't have to modify their practice to get more business. It's coming to them anyway.
Well, and one of the things. Go ahead.
No, I'm trying to think. I just had this happen with a large corporation. We were trying to do company cups. I had already placed my order. Told them the colors I wanted to put my logos on this cup. This is it. Said and done. They took my credit card. They processed my credit card. In my mind, it was said and done. They called and let me know that they had oversold the color cup I wanted. They couldn't do it any longer. But the day I bought them, they were still in stock. So somebody else took my stock and got it instead of. So that was a fight we had, and it's still an ongoing battle.
So I'll tell you what I'm assuming you guys may agree with me. If it were me in charge of that situation, not in your shoes, but the person you're ordering from, if I had a customer said that to me, I would say, all right, I'm sorry, I can't get the cups in right now, but here's another color at a discounted price to help kind of mitigate.
Oh no, they refunded me and told me good luck.
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
what happened?
Ooh.
What happened is you probably ordered 60 cups,
Yeah, it was 100. It wasn't a lot.
100. Somebody ordered 5,000, and
Yeah.
they got all your cups.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
But when I ordered, they were allocated. They had them, and somebody swooped in behind me and got them.
How do they paint these cups? I mean, is it a finite number of colors? I'm just
I don't know how many colors they got. I mean, it's a well-known brand.
right. Okay.
Wow.
So, but I mean, I
I
was,
was just saying, paint some more. I mean,
that was kind of my thought too.
Well, if you're dealing with the abdominal snowman,
Mhm.
you're going to get what they want to sell you
Yeah.
at the
yeah.
price they want to sell it to.
It gets better, John. They discontinued the color this year.
oh,
That's even better.
Did they send you an email going, ha ha?
is that your company's color logo?
It is. It is.
What, did you ever find a new company to work with?
We're going back to the other company that offers them in plastic.
Oh.
Ah,
I was going to say sweatshirt this year, guys.
So, yeah. So we've always had one that they've always been great. They're just not the new brand name to have.
Well, let me ask you this: where do you think that came from? That they would just say, "To heck with you, go about your business." Do you think that was corporate policy, or do you think it was the They just-
the customer service rep at the time, or how do you think?
well, the customer service supervisor? Who do you think made that decision?
well, they're all representative of the company.
Right.
I mean, ultimate liability or responsibility lies with the company, in my opinion.
But all right, so let me go ahead and further so you understand how this went down. Would you have expected to have got a call and said, "Hey, we can't fill this order. We're going to offer you a refund," or would you just have expected to notice, "I just got a refund"? They never called. I had to call and find out what happened.
I'm not surprised at that, actually.
That blew my mind and totally changed my idea of the company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying
You're
to
going to
remember-
use them again, right?
No.
I'm trying to remember. That happened recently with my wife, Alex, and I can't remember exactly what the product was, but it was very similar, where one day she just looked at the shipping information, canceled. No notification, nothing like that. She just happened to check the shipping date, and it just said canceled.
I like this one. I have noticed that if you're on one of these widely known online shopping stores and you order something that says that it'll be here, between February 28th and March 7th, chances are it's either coming from California because it's in a warehouse there, or it's coming from overseas. And I don't know how they do it, but especially if it's coming through the Postal Service, they forge the documents. They say, well, the label's been created, it's been picked up, it's at this facility, it's at this facility, and then you go on to the Postal Service, and they got no record of it.
Is it not crazy
Maybe-
that they can make the post office deliver on a Sunday and on holidays?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
for a $2 order.
Yeah, I had this recently happened to me. I had pre-ordered a video game. I know it sounds wild. I'm young, but anyways, pre-ordered a video game. Yeah,
You gave them money for something that they don't even have yet. Wow.
You're
Yeah.
a developer at that point.
Yeah.
so it's one of my.
Beta tester.
It was one of my absolute favorite series I've ever played. Like from when I was a small child, loved the series, and they they did an adaptation of it. It was God of War. I don't know if you guys know that game or not, but originally it was based off of Greek mythology. I loved it. It was one of my favorite games. Anyways, they did a Norse mythology version of it, and they just did the sequel. I pre-ordered the sequel. The first Norse mythology one was awesome. One of my favorite games to this day. So, anyways, I pre-ordered it.
Okay, so we've established his nerdism here.
Yeah.
I was
So-
hoping you were going to say Frogger.
That was when John was a kid, I'm sure.
Ping
No,
pong
that was
or
before. That was
pong.
Pong.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Pong.
Pong.
Absolutely. Oh, I had text games.
High score over here. Atari's still trying to run him down.
Oh, yeah. Atari. I love the Atari. Anyways, I
First,
had.
now that you brought the subject up, the first video game that I played was a text game, and it was like you're standing in front of a cave. What do you want to do?
Oh, it was like the
And then and you say, look left.
yeah.
There's nothing to your left. Look right. There's nothing to your right.
Yeah, it's
What do you
it's
wanna
like the
do?
original RPGs. Yeah. Anyways, back to God of War.
Yeah, we have succeeded again, guys, in
Yeah.
getting totally off topic.
Yeah, so I had bought this game, and just like you said, checking the shipping, it said it went here and then went up to like Pennsylvania. It was in Athens originally. Went up to like Pennsylvania, went to California. It just went around the entire U.S. And then finally, I went and just bought the game when it came out because I was supposed to get it the day it came out.
Because he could not wait.
I was supposed to get it the day it came out. I waited a full week, and I'm like, well, the issue is this is a story-based game. Here's why. This is a story-based game. The narrative of the story is so important to it that as soon as people start playing it, it's all over the internet. And we have learned, which is something we need to share with you guys, we have learned if you talk about something, your device is going to say, let me start throwing that kind of information up. So
Yeah,
I started getting
talk about a diversion. That's a true story.
Yeah.
We've done some of these podcasts, and when we publish them, the topics in those are the ads we start getting.
Yeah, so one of the former episodes we talked about Don Knotts and his history, and I think it was the night that we said that John got home and posted on Facebook. It was a background story that popped up for him.
Basically,
of
the
Don
story
Knotts.
you told in the episode.
Yeah, of the story that I told. John didn't even say it. I guess his device heard me.
Do you know how you got to start?
Yeah. Wait, which one? You talking about the military?
Don Knotts.
What are you talking? Yeah, he went in the military. He was a military entertainer.
He was a ventriloquist.
A
Yep.
ventriloquist. Yeah. So
That's going to be on your feed tomorrow.
Yeah, I told this
Tonight.
story. We were
Tonight.
talking about movies, and we were talking about or TV shows. We're talking about the morality of Andy Griffith, and I was like, "Well, look at the actor. You have Don Knotts, who served in the military."
Eddie,
and I told this
hadn't
story.
heard this episode yet.
No, I told this story in that episode, and when John got home, it was in his Facebook feed, the story of Don Knotts in the military.
And also, we were talking about favorite movies.
Shrek.
Shrek is one of my favorite movies.
So John was talking about one of his favorite movies being Shrek. When I got home, I was just going through my YouTube feed, and there's just random things about Shrek start popping up, and I immediately sent it to John. I think it was a therapist react, like it was like a couples therapy with Fiona and Shrek. But
How did we go from?
So I'll
Federal-
rope it back in right here.
Thank you.
So this is talking about how the morality of big corporations are listening into what we're doing to manipulate us.
There you go.
yeah,
That
100%.
is absolutely correct. And
Yeah.
that was the point. And how far do these
Good
companies?
segue.
Yeah, high five.
How do these companies get by with that kind of thing?
No,
You're supposed to put
no
ask-
repercussions.
Well,
Ask app
well-
not to track.
Well, my thing is, you have HIPAA, which is meant to protect privacy, but then you have our devices literally listening to us and just feeding us everything we talk
But
about.
think about how much of your personal information you put on that device. There's a movie on, I don't remember which platform it is, called Jexy, and they're ripping off Siri. Have you all ever watched it? It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny.
You ought to watch it.
Jexy?
Oh, it's hilarious. And she controls his every move. And that's kind of the point of the movie, is they're ripping off on the fact that all these people are not wanting to set their devices down and interact with people.
So is that our own fault that we get
That
in
you
that
haven't-
situation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
agree.
think about how much of your personal information you're personally putting out there.
I mean, to me, it's a balancing act, right? The conveniences of all this to our everyday life. You know, I'm constantly weighing how much my information am I going to allow to be out there, so that I can benefit from the conveniences. Right.
Let's segue again. Is it, you know, that when you agree to these applications and these online businesses, you agree to let them control your camera, to control your microphone, everything.
your GPS location.
Is it moral for them to be listening in on your
to
conversation?
misuse
because
that,
because
to use it for other than the intent that you had it for.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
have you ever been browsing trying to shop something and it pop up online? Here's better options that I'd never even looked on there, but I was looking on an app trying to find something. That's frustrating.
Once again, that's a moral issue, and right now we have a problem reining those kind of things in.
Well, it's just like in the security field when I've done a good bit of IT security.
Really?
A little bit, yeah. And you're constantly racing, basically, to stay ahead of the bad guys.
Right.
Same way with these things. You're racing to stay ahead of the technology. There are certainly browsers out there that keep you private. There are certainly many
VPN
tools out there,
sources,
VPNs and whatnot that you.
I
there's
don't think I've heard
way,
of whatnot.
but you have to go an extra effort to get ahead of that, and sometimes it's just not convenient, and you're always trading off convenience for risk.
Yeah. And that again speaks to the morality of the culture of the society, is that there's so many bad actors. There's just an influx of them that you have to have that extra step ahead.
But have they all
going to get got?
So here's the theme of this whole modern morality thing is, have they always been there and they're using newer tools, or have the newer tools made them more prolific? We keep coming back to this.
I think they've always been there.
I do too.
I think we've given them a platform.
Yeah.
Not only have we given them a platform, where are the repercussions? If there's no repercussions, behavior's not going to change.
No. One of the teachers I had growing up, he used to tell me, talking about all that, as a history teacher, he would always talk about all these bad things that happen. He goes, "Class, I want you to think about something. You pick up your newspaper. What do you read? You read mostly a lot of bad things. There was an accident. There was somebody got murdered. There was a lot, stuff like that." He goes, "Well, think about it." Or you pick up your phone. That's all you see. You can see news from 5 states away, but it's all tragic. He goes, these murders, the rapists, all these things that have happened, these crimes that were committed, have always been committed. You just didn't know about them. You now have the ability to know about them. And it kind of feeds into your point.
I'll tell you this. If you pick up a news article from 100 years ago, I'm going to go way back on this one, newspaper print, they didn't filter things. They told it matter-of-factly, but with much more detail than you get today.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't care who they offended. It was facts.
Right.
Well, think about how many people are just scrolling through on their phone looking at the news or what they want to call the news. They're just catching the headlines. They're not reading what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So if somebody puts an eyedropper of a headline out there, they're going to say, "Oh, did you read how such and such did this?" But when you read down through the article, that's really not what happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to see a lot of that in a lot of the people that run.
I have a cousin, and he reacts a lot to things that's on Facebook, and he loves to call people out for things like that. Somebody will make a comment about some article that's on there, and his comment is that's not what the article says at all. Did you read it?
I think we've all got a cousin like that.
Yeah.
Probably got friends like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get to one final point so we can wrap up. So it sounds like we've kind of jumped a lot of topics over business. I know business has kind of been our main topic, but how morality has either changed or how privacy issues have even changed businesses, so to speak.
Well, that's because that's what drives a lot of our culture is commerce. I mean, I won't name names again, but I'm sure you all are aware of recent news about some big company that did something and people voted with their pocketbook on what they thought of those actions. And honestly, that's probably one of the best repercussions you can have to make your point.
Yeah. Well, you have I don't know how the best way to describe this, but there's businesses now that are very politically driven. So you have the left-leaning political activists, and then you have the right-leaning political advocate, or they're business owners. And for years, they kept saying people on the right never really had options. They can only buy what was at the store. Well, there's people people on the left. The people on the right are saying, we need to find new options. So you have businesses like the Daily Wire who have Jeremy Razors of all things. They said that this other company was very woke and they weren't going to support that because otherwise you just have to.
Daily Wire is not a sponsor yet either.
No.
Just saying.
He said yet.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Got to think big. I hope they're listening.
Yeah. So, anyways, they have like this whole brand. So they're doing like the
I wonder
Daily Wire
if Tito's
Kids.
is hunting for a sponsor.
So they're taking, they're trying to attack. I won't say attack. They're trying to give options to get away from like Disney Plus, because Disney's putting in these topics or stuff that may not be ideal for certain households, and they're really trying to force this culture on kids. So Daily Wire says, nope, we're just going to make our own kids channel that's unbiased, that's just straight educational cartoons or whatever, or puppet shows or whatever they're doing. But one of the things that we haven't had until, I say, recent times is another option. I feel like we've always had to support those who had the most money. So you're talking about there's businesses who don't treat their customers right because they don't have to. They're still going to get paid. That's one of the only services out there. Or even if it's not the only service out there, there's only a few more in there the exact same way. So you're just choosing the better of two evils. But until we start to branch out and have businesses grow with morals and have that minority come up and start their own businesses, I don't know if we'll ever get out of that funk.
I want to make a bad example to that.
A bad example?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of places now that are going to a self-checkout.
Yeah.
Until that starts getting into that company's pocket, it's going to remain self-checkout. But it's
Right.
eventually going to change.
Yep.
It's going to have to.
Yeah, I try not to do self-checkout.
Yeah.
They didn't train me how to self-checkout.
Right?
Well, and one of the things that I saw circulating on Facebook a lot was there are people who do the self-checkout and then immediately get checked by somebody at the door. Why isn't that the person at the door? Why are they not at the register? I mean, you can't expect people to do the work themselves and then try to govern immediately after. It just can't do that. Not
Well,
morally.
you're talking about on the way out. What about on the way in? These stores that are having kiosks to place your order. I mean,
I saw well, that's another topic.
It is. We could.
we're
we'll
really
spend-
good at coming up with topics, but not sticking to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another topic. Sticking to your plan. Well, we had an extra long episode today, so I hope you guys enjoyed. So I think we're going to wrap up for the night. John, anything?
I got nothing.
Johnny?
How about Eddie? You got anything?
I'm good.
Well,
I'm glad I'm here. Thank y'all for having me.
Definitely want to thank Eddie for joining us. And if you guys like what you hear, definitely let us know. We can easily pull him back in front of a microphone. We'd love to have him. So.
And Eddie, if you think of anybody else who would like to be on this show, let us know.
Yeah, you want to give a shout out to a specific someone like your brother?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I've got some good ideas. Unfortunately, it would be a remote situation for the near future, but he would be a good one.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to Modern Morality. We hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening to Modern Morality. Please visit our website at modernmoralitymedia.com and leave us some feedback about the show. We look forward to exploring more with you. Until next time.